Please save, we'll bear your children. And rancher does the unthinkable. The rancher had lived on his land for most of his life. His days followed a quiet pattern. He woke before sunrise, fed the animals, checked the fences, and spent long hours working under the wide-open sky. The land was dry but honest. It gave back only what a man was willing to work for. He liked it that way. Out there, far from busy towns, life felt simple and clear. I grew with Bacage. That morning started like any other. The air was cool, and a light wind moved through the tall grass. The rancher rode his old truck slowly along the dirt road that cut through his property. He was checking a broken fence line that his neighbor had mentioned. Coyotes had been spotted nearby, and he wanted to make sure no animals could escape. As he drove, he noticed something unusual near the edge of the road. At first, he thought it was just shadows or maybe stray animals hiding in the brush. But then he saw movement. Slow, careful movement. He stopped the truck and stepped out, squinting into the distance. That was when he saw them. Several women stood together near a cluster of trees. Their clothes were dusty and torn. Some of them looked hurt. One was holding her arm tightly, and another leaned heavily on the shoulder of someone else. Their faces showed fear, exhaustion, and deep worry. They looked like people who had been running for a long time. The rancher felt a sudden tightness in his chest. This was not normal. No one came out here by accident. The land was too empty, too far from towns and main roads. He raised his hands slowly to show he meant no harm. "Hey," he said in a calm voice. "You okay? You look like you've been through something." The women froze when they saw him. For a moment, he thought they might run. They whispered to each other in low, shaking voices. Finally, one of them stepped forward. She looked older than the others, though still young. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red from crying or lack of sleep. "Please," she said softly, "don't send us away." The rancher was confused. "I wasn't planning to," he replied, "but you need to tell me what's going on. Are you hurt? Do you need help?" Another woman spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Someone is looking for us." That single sentence changed everything. The rancher felt a chill run through him. He had seen trouble before in his life, but something about the way she said it told him this was serious. "Who's looking for you?" he asked. They hesitated. Their eyes kept moving toward the road and the open land behind them, as if they expected someone to appear at any moment. "We can't say much," the first woman replied, "but they're dangerous. If they find us, they'll take us back." The rancher studied their faces. These were not people making up a story. Fear like that could not be faked. Their hands shook. Their breathing was fast and uneven. "You can sit down," he said gently. "You're safe for the moment. At least here." He led them toward a shaded area near a small water tank he kept for cattle. He gave them bottles of water from his truck. They drank quickly, some spilling water on their shirts because their hands trembled so much. As they rested, the rancher noticed more details. One woman had bruises on her wrist. Another had dirt and dried blood on her shoe. None of them looked like they had planned a trip. They looked like they had escaped. One of the younger women suddenly started crying. "We didn't know where else to go," she said. "We just ran. We didn't even know whose land this was." "You did the right thing by stopping," the rancher said. "Out here, people don't always pass by." The first woman took a deep breath. "We heard stories about a rancher who was fair. Someone who didn't ask too many questions. We hoped maybe you were him." The rancher felt uncomfortable with that. He wasn't used to being part of stories. He was just a man trying to live quietly. "I'm just me," he said, "but I won't turn away people who need help." There was a long pause. Then one of the women said something that shocked him. "We will do anything if you protect us." The words made him stiffen. He held up his hand quickly. "No," he said firmly. "You don't owe me anything if I help. It's because it's the right thing to do. Not because I expect something in return." They looked surprised by his reaction. The older woman nodded slowly, as if she was trying to understand. "We're just scared," she said. "We don't know who to trust anymore." The rancher's voice softened. "Fear makes people say things they don't really mean. Right now, what matters is keeping you safe and figuring out what to do next." He asked simple questions. How long had they been running? Did they have any injuries that needed a doctor? Did anyone know they were here? Their answers came in pieces. They had been running for days. They had escaped from a place where they were controlled and watched all the time. They didn't trust the local authorities because the people chasing them had power and connections. They believed if they were found, they would be forced to go back. The rancher felt anger rising inside him. He hated the idea of people being treated like property. He had grown up believing that everyone deserved freedom and dignity. "You can stay here for now," he said after listening carefully. "I have a small guest house near the barn. It's not fancy, but it's safe and private." Tears filled the eyes of one woman. "Thank you," she said. "You don't know what this means to us." The rancher didn't answer right away. He was already thinking about the risks. If powerful people were truly searching for them, his ranch could become a target. His quiet life could disappear overnight. Still, he couldn't turn them away. As they walked toward the buildings, the women stayed close together. They kept looking over their shoulders. Every sound made them jump. A bird flying out of a tree made one of them gasp. Inside the small guest house, the rancher gave them clean towels and basic supplies. He told them to rest and stay quiet. "No one comes out here often," he said. "But still, it's better to be careful." When he stepped back outside, the weight of what had just happened hit him fully. His land, once peaceful, now felt like the center of something dangerous. He leaned against his truck and took a long breath. He knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, people were searching for these women. People who would not give up easily. The rancher realized that by opening his door, he had stepped into a situation much bigger than himself. But deep down, he also knew something else. If he had driven past them, if he had pretended not to see, he would never forgive himself. As the sun moved higher in the sky, the rancher stood watching the empty road. Dust moved gently in the distance. Everything looked normal, but he understood now that normal was gone. The desperate encounter had changed his life, even if he didn't fully realize it yet. And whatever came next, there would be no turning back. The women stayed quiet in the small guest house for most of the first day. The rancher brought them simple food, fresh water, and clean blankets. He tried not to ask too many questions right away. He could see they were tired not just in their bodies, but in their minds. Fear had followed them for a long time. As evening came, the sky turned orange and purple. The rancher sat outside on a wooden chair, listening to the familiar sounds of his land. Cattle moved in the distance. The wind brushed through dry grass. Everything looked peaceful. But inside his thoughts, nothing felt calm. He kept thinking about their faces. The fear was real. Whatever they ran from had left deep marks on them. Later that night, he gently knocked on the guest house door. "I made some soup," he said. "It's nothing special, but it's warm." The door opened slowly. The same older woman stood there. She looked cleaner now, but still nervous. "Thank you," she said quietly. They sat together at the small table. At first, no one spoke. The sound of spoons against bowls filled the silence. Finally, one of the younger women looked up. "You're wondering why we ran," she said. The rancher nodded. "Only if you're ready to talk. I don't want to push." The women exchanged looks. Then the older woman took a deep breath. We were kept in a place where we had no control over our lives. We were watched all the time. Every move we made was tracked. The rancher felt his jaw tighten. By who? A group of people with money and power, she said. They made promises at first. Work, safety, a better future, a better up. But once we were there, everything changed. Another woman added, "They took our phones. They decided where we went, who we spoke to. We weren't allowed to leave." The rancher listened carefully. He did not interrupt. He wanted them to feel safe speaking. If anyone tried to argue, the older woman continued, they were punished. Not always, in ways you could see. Sometimes it was threats. Sometimes it was cutting off food or isolating someone from the rest. One of the women stared at her bowl, her hands shaking slightly. "They made us feel small," she said, "like we had no value unless we did what they wanted." The rancher felt anger rising in his chest. He had seen unfairness in the world, but hearing it directly from people who lived through it made it harder to ignore. "How did you get out?" he asked. "It wasn't planned," the older woman said. "There was a moment when security was lighter. Someone forgot to lock a door properly. We didn't think. We just ran." Another woman nodded. "We didn't even pack. We just took what we could carry. We knew if we stayed, we might never get another chance." They explained how they hid during the day and traveled at night. They avoided main roads. They trusted no one. Every stranger felt like a possible threat. "We heard they were already looking for us," one woman said. "They have people who can find others. That's why we're so scared." The rancher leaned back in his chair. His mind raced. "If they're powerful," he said slowly, "then helping you could bring trouble here." The older woman looked at him with tired eyes. "We know. We didn't want to put you in danger, but we had nowhere else." The room grew quiet again. The rancher stared at the wooden table. His peaceful ranch suddenly felt like a fragile shield against something much darker. "There's something else," one woman said softly. "They don't just want us back. They want to make an example, to show others not to run." That sentence sat heavy in the air. The rancher stood up and walked to the small window. He looked out at the open land. So much space, so much freedom. It made what they described feel even more cruel. "You're safe here for now," he said firmly, "but we need to be smart. If they come looking, we can't let them find you easily." The women nodded. They were used to hiding. Over the next few days, small pieces of their past came out. Not all at once. Sometimes in short comments, sometimes in tears, late at night. The rancher learned that some of them had left their homes believing they were going to start a better life. They were promised work and support. Instead, they were trapped. They were very careful, one woman explained. They made everything look legal on the outside. If anyone asked questions, they had answers ready. The rancher realized how hard it would be to fight something like that. Power, money, and influence could twist many things. He began to make small changes on his ranch. He moved some equipment to block certain paths. He told his few neighbors that he was repairing buildings and didn't want visitors for a while. He avoided town more than usual. At night, he sometimes lay awake, listening for sounds that didn't belong. A car in the distance, a strange noise near the fence. Every small thing made his heart beat faster. One evening, the older woman sat with him outside. The sky was full of stars. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "You could have told us to leave." The rancher shook his head. "If it were my family," he said, "I'd hope someone would help them too." She looked at him with deep gratitude. "You don't know how rare kindness feels to us right now." But fear still lived under every moment. The women rarely went outside. They stayed quiet. They kept lights low at night. Then, one afternoon, the rancher noticed fresh tire tracks near the edge of his property. His stomach tightened. He hadn't invited anyone. The tracks looked recent. He didn't tell the women right away. He didn't want to panic them. But inside, he felt a strong warning. Someone might be getting closer. That night, he finally shared what he saw. The women's faces went pale. One of them started to cry quietly. "They're finding us," she whispered. The rancher placed a steady hand on the table. "We don't know that for sure. It could be someone lost. But we need to be ready." He thought about calling authorities, but the women had already explained why they were afraid of that. If the wrong people were contacted, it could make things worse. The rancher realized he was now standing between two worlds. One was his quiet, honest life. The other was a dark network that reached far beyond his land. He didn't know all the details yet, but one thing was clear. The women were carrying a dark secret, and that secret had the power to bring serious danger to his door. As the wind moved through the grass again, the rancher felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier. Helping them was no longer just an act of kindness. It was becoming a serious and risky choice, and the truth was still only partly revealed. The rancher could feel the pressure building inside him. Every day that passed made the situation heavier. What started as a simple act of helping people in need had slowly turned into something that affected every part of his life. He still woke up early, fed the animals, and checked the fences, but his mind was never fully on his work anymore. His eyes were always searching the horizon. Every dust cloud in the distance made him stop and watch. Every unfamiliar sound made his body tense. Inside the guest house, the women were struggling too. The fear had not left them. Even though they were safer than before, their minds could not forget what they had escaped. Sometimes one of them would wake up in the night from bad dreams. The rancher could hear quiet crying through the thin walls. One morning, as he brought fresh bread and fruit, he noticed how tired they all looked. "You can't live like this forever," he said gently, "always waiting for something bad to happen." The older woman nodded. "We know, but we don't see a clear way out." That was the problem. The rancher kept turning it over in his head. If he sent them away, they could be found. If he kept them, his ranch could become a target. If he went to the wrong people for help, their powerful enemies might use that against them. Every option felt dangerous. He sat alone one evening in his small house, staring at an old photo of his parents. They had taught him to stand up for what was right, even when it was hard. His father had once said, "A man's peace comes from knowing he did the right thing, not the easy thing." But this was bigger than anything he had faced before. What if helping them cost him everything? His land, his reputation, his safety. The women could feel his struggle too. One of them finally spoke what they had all been thinking. "We don't want to destroy your life," she said quietly. "If it's too dangerous, we can leave." The rancher looked at her, surprised. Leave and go where? She didn't have an answer. That was the painful truth. There was nowhere safe they could think of. Another woman added, "We don't want you to feel trapped because of us." Those words hit him hard. He realized they were not only afraid for themselves, they were worried about him too. That night, he walked the fence line alone. The stars were bright, but his thoughts were dark. He imagined strangers driving up his road. He imagined people asking questions. He imagined rumors spreading in town. He had lived quietly for years. People knew him as a simple rancher who minded his own business. If powerful people started looking into him, that quiet life could disappear fast. At the same time, he thought about the women's faces when they first appeared, the fear, the exhaustion, the way they begged not to be sent away. He stopped walking and stood still in the open land. "I can't turn my back on them," he said to himself. But he also knew he couldn't just hide them forever and hope for the best. That would be careless. It would put everyone at risk. He started thinking more carefully. He thought about old friends, people he trusted, people who had helped others in quiet ways before. Not officials, not anyone who could be easily influenced, just people who believed in doing the right thing. Still, even reaching out to the wrong person could bring danger. The next day he sat down with the women and spoke honestly. "I won't force you to leave," he said, "but I need you to understand something. But what we're doing here could become very serious. I might lose things that matter to me. I might face trouble." The older woman looked at him with deep respect. "We already know you're risking a lot." "Ah, that's why we're so grateful." Another woman said, "We're not asking you to be a hero. We just want a chance to live free." That word, free, stayed with him. Freedom was something he had always had. He could go where he wanted, work when he wanted, speak his mind. He had never truly understood how painful it would be to have that taken away. The women told him more about the emotional side of what they went through, how they were made to feel powerless, how their confidence was slowly broken down, how they were made to believe they had no other options. "They wanted us to stop believing in ourselves," one woman said, "so we wouldn't even try to leave." The rancher felt his fists tighten. No one has the right to do that to another person. That afternoon, a neighbor stopped by unexpectedly. The rancher's heart jumped. He quickly stepped outside to meet him before he could go near the guest house. "Just checking in," the neighbor said. "Haven't seen you in town lately." The rancher forced a calm smile. "Been busy with repairs and animals. You know how it is." The neighbor laughed. Always something on a ranch. But as the neighbor drove away, the rancher realized how close they were to being noticed. If people started asking questions, it could lead to bigger problems. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He thought about making a bold move, something that would protect the women more strongly, something that would make it harder for others to reach them. But bold moves also came with bold risks. He imagined his name being talked about, his business being watched, his past being examined. Even small mistakes could be used against him. Still, doing nothing felt worse. The next morning he made a quiet decision inside his heart. If danger was coming, he would not face it halfway. He would either protect them fully, or he would find a safer path for them, even if it meant stepping into conflict with powerful people. That thought scared him more than anything else so far. He told the women, "I'm thinking about a stronger plan, something that could keep you safer, long term. But it might bring attention to me." They looked at him, worried. "We don't want you to suffer because of us," one said. The rancher shook his head. "Sometimes doing the right thing costs something. I just need to decide how much I'm willing to pay." That was his moral struggle, not between right and wrong, but between safety and conscience, between protecting his peaceful life and protecting people who had no one else. As days passed, the pressure grew. The tire tracks appeared again, closer this time. A car was seen slowly driving past the far fence. Nothing happened, but the message felt clear. Someone was searching. The rancher stood at the edge of his land, watching the dust settle. He knew his next decision would change everything. Once he crossed that line, there would be no easy way back. But he also knew something else. If he walked away now, he would carry that regret for the rest of his life. And that, to him, felt like a heavier price than any danger that might come. Time changed everything. What once felt like a short-term emergency slowly became a long and difficult journey. The rancher's life was no longer simple. Word began to spread that he had helped people who were in trouble. Some people respected him for it. Others became curious. A few became suspicious. There were visits from outsiders, asking questions, not always direct. Sometimes it was just small talk. Sometimes it was someone pretending to be interested in buying land nearby. The rancher learned to answer carefully. He never shared more than necessary. He kept his tone calm and steady. The women, too, began to change. At first, they were quiet, scared, and unsure of themselves. But over time, small signs of strength returned. They laughed sometimes. They helped around the ranch in simple ways. They started to believe again that their lives could be more than just running and hiding. One woman started helping with cooking. Another helped clean and organize. These small routines gave them a sense of normal life again. It reminded them that they were people, not just victims of a dark past. The rancher watched this with quiet pride. He didn't say much, but inside, he felt relief. Seeing them smile even for a moment made all the stress feel a little lighter. Still, the pressure from outside did not fully disappear. There were moments when the rancher thought it might all fall apart. A strange car near the road. A phone call that ended suddenly. A neighbor asking too many questions. Each time his heart would beat faster, but nothing truly terrible happened. Slowly, the powerful people who had been searching seemed to lose their grip. Maybe they moved on. Maybe they focused on other things. Maybe they realized that pushing too hard would bring attention they did not want. Whatever the reason, the danger did not fully vanish, but it softened. The women were finally able to make plans for the future. One of them wanted to move to another area where no one knew her. Another wanted to reconnect with distant family members who had lost touch. Another dreamed of starting a small business. One day, something simple, something honest. The rancher helped quietly where he could. He used his contacts. He made phone calls. He gave advice. He never took credit. He never asked for thanks. One evening, they all sat together outside, watching the sunset. The sky was painted with soft orange and pink colors. The land felt peaceful again, almost like it had before everything began. The older woman looked at the rancher and said, "You gave us something we thought we had lost forever." "What's that?" he asked. "Hope," she said. He looked away, a little uncomfortable. He was not used to being thanked in such a deep way. "You did the hard part. he replied. "You were brave enough to leave. But we couldn't have done it alone," another woman said. "You stood between us and something very dark." The rancher stayed quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Sometimes life puts someone in your path for a reason. Maybe this was mine." As time passed, one by one, the women began to move forward. One left quietly in the early morning with a small bag and a new plan. Another left a few weeks later, smiling and nervous but ready. Each goodbye was emotional. There were tears. There were long hugs. There were promises to stay in touch when possible. The rancher felt proud and sad at the same time. Proud because they were moving toward freedom. Sad because the ranch had become a place of healing, and now it was changing again. Eventually, only one woman remained for a short while longer. She needed more time to feel ready. The rancher gave her that time without pressure. One day she came to him and said, "I think I'm ready now." He nodded. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "Just live your life." She smiled. "I will, and I will never forget what you did." When she left, the ranch became quiet again. The guest house stood empty. The land returned to its old rhythm. Animals, wind, open sky, long days of work. But the rancher was not the same man he had been before. He had seen how dark the world could be. He had also seen how strong people could be when given even a small chance to stand up again. There were consequences for him, too. Some people in town treated him differently. Some respected him more. Some avoided him. Rumors had spread, even if no one knew the full truth. His name was no longer just the name of a quiet rancher, but he accepted that. At night, when he sat alone, he sometimes replayed everything in his mind. The first time he saw the women, their fear, their relief, their slow return to hope. He knew he had taken a risk. He knew things could have gone much worse. But he also knew one simple truth. If he had turned them away, he would not be able to live with himself. The rancher had chosen courage over comfort. Not because he wanted to be a hero, not because he wanted attention, but because, in that moment, it was the right thing to do. And that choice had changed lives, not just theirs, his too. The land was still quiet. The road was still dusty. The sky was still wide and open. But now, hidden inside that quiet ranch, was a story of fear, strength, sacrifice, and hope. A story that would never be written on signs or told loudly in town, but a story that would live forever in the hearts of those who had been saved, and in the heart of one rancher who did the unthinkable by choosing to care.